Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone are doing great. I think let's start with the session. Okay. So in the last session, what all the topics we have covered? I believe we have tried to work on the storage level, elastic block storage, instance types, and creations of AMI, understanding of snapshots and the backups, and migrations of AMI from one region to another region. And we are able to transfer the data from one region to another region, right? And the extension of storage from server level, attachment and the detachment and the deletion, correct? So that's all about the instance and the storage level options. So there were few other services within the AC2 as well that we'll try to proceed. And once we are done, we can try to move into a next level of service in AWS. Any doubts from yesterday's sessions? Any doubts on the topics we have discussed yesterday? We have covered most of the topics. Anyone having any doubts, you can post in the Zoom chat. All right. So today we are trying to discuss about the concept of auto scaling and the load balancer. So before we go that, we'll try to have a little understanding of load balancer. So and auto scaling concept. So what is auto scaling within the AWS and how it is going to be helpful? And in real time scenarios, how we are able to achieve the outputs by configurations of auto scaling option for the EC2 instances. Okay. So Amazon EC2 auto scaling helps us to ensure that we have correct number of apps available to handle the load of the application. So load of the application means what is the thing? It means, for example, if any website has to be done, any website which has to be functional over the internet, that application has to be installed in somewhere in the server, correct? So if that has to be installed, so it is actually created for the purpose of handling these many servers, I mean, these many users or this much load that where that application can handle. So for example, if there is a T2.micro server, it is having 1 core of CPU, one core of RAM. And maybe if you try to allocate maybe 15 GB of storage as a hard drive, correct? So it's very low specification. So we have to install the applications where that load can be handled within that specifications, correct? So if it is crossing beyond the limit, for example, if I'm trying to having more usage of application, what happens? Even the application, if it is trying to have that, it tends to be crashed and the server will be hanged and it gets rebooted. So we can try to relate with our physical computer where it has very much low specifications. If you're trying to install any high level games, so what happens? The CPU utilizations will be 100%, memory RAM utilization will be 100%. So the capacity is less compared to the applications we are using onto the server or the computers. So that's when the issues comes in, correct? So again, we need to make sure that if we have to use that application, we need to increase the CPU, memory, and resources and everything comes into picture. So that's nothing but a capacity allocation. So we need to gauge capacity on depending on the application we are trying to use for that purpose. Okay. So before we try to go that, we'll try to have an example first, understanding how it's going to be worked on. The two concepts which we are covering now. Load balancer. Okay. So let me try to have a example. For example, there is a website. So it's having a dark screen. Stop. Okay. So let us try to take an example of some specific website. For example, ebay.com. And how it is trying to have a load with, it is trying to just load with a particular website where users are trying to hit, right? So multiple people can try to use a login from a mobile devices and everything. So people are trying to use this website. Let's see how the backend process, how it is actually configured. It's kind of a mobile devices and various options. I'm just trying to have that notation. Okay. And it can be loaded in the browser with HTTP or HTTPS protocol. You can see that, where if you try to load any website, that will be trying to go through HTTPS portals. And it just loaded with the DNS. Even the DNS options will come up here. Like DNS is nothing but a domain name system. Okay. So I'm just trying to have a overview. So when I'm trying to go through this website, for example, if I'm trying to load any website over here, it has to go with some HTTPS, ebay.in, something like that, right? From my browser. Let's see where it is trying to go in. Now you can see it should be HTTPS. So either hypertext transfer protocol, secure layer. Okay. So any genuine websites that has to go with a secure layer with HTTP or HTTPS portal. Next step where it is trying to go, it has to go to the DNS server, because these URLs actually managed by the domain name system. So the next step in the background where it is actually working on, we are able to see as a front-end users, we just need a name to load the website in some particular browsers, right? So this particular URL is actually managed by the domain name servers. Okay. And then this particular domain name system, particular URL, it has to be mapped with an IP address. You remember yesterday when I'm trying to launch an instance, it is getting some public IP address. Public IP address is required when you are trying to have that URL actually loading from the public internet. Correct? So this has to be loaded with the public internet. So I'm trying to have that mention as well. Then the DNS is linked with an IP address. Okay, that's trying to mention here. And this is kind of a front-end layer, like where in the browser actually it works on. Correct? This is kind of a front-end layer where I'm trying to load this website. This is actually linked to the domain name system, and this domain name system is linked with an IP address. So the IP address is actually connecting to the servers which I'm trying to launch the instances. That is nothing but an instance. Usually this is how it happens. So I'm just trying to have that kind of a quick snippet which I'm trying to draw here. Okay. So then it is trying to go through we are trying to have this particular information loaded over the cloud internet, correct? So it is actually managed via the cloud. Everything is virtual, right? Now, behind this, so everything will be going to the servers. So to generate an IP address, we need a network. So it will be again going to the network. Network will be managed here. Thus, network aspects will be managed by the cloud infrastructure, correct? So I'm trying to put that information here as well. And then to have this particular website, where it has to go, it has to be installed in some kind of a server. So where are those servers are located? The servers are located where this particular infrastructure is deployed. Either this infrastructure can be physical infrastructure or the cloud environment. We are trying to actually understand about the cloud environment. So it is not about on-premise. On-premise is nothing but a physical infrastructure. So as we are trying to go with the virtual infrastructure, this is how actually the graph looks like. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to add servers here. What are the servers? You remember the very first day I tried to install the web application in the Linux and in the Windows, how we are trying to install the web applications to have a website deployed, test website, Apache, correct? So that kind of an application should be installed in the servers. So it can be web servers, app servers. Okay. So I'm trying to mention with the app servers and the web servers here. App server 1. So it will be in hundreds. So I'm just trying to mention in the form of diagram for an easy understanding for you. Because in real-time environment, it will be more than 100 and thousands, and it depends on how it can be. Okay. So this should be a web server 1. Web server 2. Right? That's fine. I had a website where multiple users are trying to access this website. It is coming through a HTTPS protocol with a DNS, which is trying to map with an IP address, where this IP address is managed over the network. This particular infrastructure is completely installed in a servers. Okay. So I'm trying to have a link with this. Now that's fine. So, and a web deployment applications have been installed in these servers, and these are actually managed with the cloud. So now, if whatever the data, for example, if a gaming application is installed, if a social media application is installed in these servers, should be a data that has been fetched by the users. So how many users, it may be millions of users who are trying to access that particular website, the data has to be stored somewhere. So for the data to be stored, where it will be stored? Storage of data, where it will be happened. Any guess, anyone? Anyone? Where the data will be stored usually? We just discussed yesterday, usually that's a general concept, right? So whenever you're trying to use and open any applications, playing games, your usernames and your data and your scoreboards and everything has to be stored. Where it has to be stored? It needs a storage, right? So the database will be trying to manage that. So the database, even that needs a database servers. So when we have a database servers where the data will be completely stored, the structured and non-structured data will be stored over there. So even there will be and again, there will be different servers for that. So I'm trying to make sure it has a database server. Okay. Again, all these are interlinked, correct? So to have a proper infrastructure deployed and how this is to be a proper network architecture diagram, it is kind of a front-end overview, but in the back end, everything will be configured. Here it will have a routing concept, route tables, subnets, and everything comes under network concept. Okay. In the app server where all the configuration will be stored. So these are kind where in general, how this network diagram is to use looks like that for a generic applications, web applications, which has to be deployed. Okay. So for example, if a user is trying to hit this website, it is trying to go through this protocols, and then it is trying to have that connections hit to these particular app servers or the web servers, and the data which has to be stored that has been linked to the database server. So the database servers, everything will be in a private mode. It doesn't have a public access because the database servers are actually secure. Okay. So now I actually developed an application called www.ebay.com. Now I try to have a service which has been deployed. Maybe I try to give an as a 100 servers. Okay. 100 servers. How much capacity? It can handle 1,000 users. Right? And maybe it has a 8-core CPU, 8-core CPU, and 20 GB of RAM, 64-bit processor, and these kind of specifications which I'm trying to launch. Maybe it is having a, you are observing, right? We have discussed about instance types, where it has a T2.micro, M4.large, and C4.large. Depending on that, I try to launch 100 servers. So these 100 servers having these many specifications. So these servers are actually created as per the capacity who can actually handle the 100 users. Who are the users? We are the users. So whenever you are trying to go to this particular website, when you are trying to hit this website and trying to click on booking and trying to click on new options, what happens? These requests are directly going to these servers. Okay. So the requests are directly coming from these servers, from these particular users. Okay. So this is how the actual requests are coming. So the request can be randomly going from anywhere. Okay. Maybe it needs to go to app server 1 and app server 2 and app server 3 and app server 4. It can be a random one. So we cannot guess like which request is going to where. So this kind of a request monitoring will be managed by the backend monitoring tools. Okay. So this is how it is managed. So for example, as I told, it is managed for only 100 users. So at some point, what happens? The usage of this particular website, it has been increased from 1,000 users to 1,500 users. When this can going to be happen? For example, if there is kind of a flash sales, and if there is a like a festival sales and big billion sales, at that time, the flow will be more in terms of accessing this particular website. So what happened? The users from thousands have increased to 1,100, and from 1,100 to 1,200, and then it's going to maximum of 1,500. Okay, during that particular weekends or usage of the festival sales. So at that time, what happens? The servers it has been managed to configure manage only for 1,000 users. So what happens? The load on this particular servers has been increased. Okay. If there's an issue, there is a load has been increased on these particular servers, because even at your computer, if it is actually you try to have an assembled computer purchased from the store, and you have installed Microsoft Word and trying to have a general application usage. At some point, if you're trying to install a high-end graphical game, or high-end applications or multiple kind of which is supposed to handle 2 games. So you're trying to install 5 games in your computer. What happens? It tends to crash because CPU will be increased and memory will be increased. The computer will be not able to handle the load. It might be hanged. It will be rebooted. So that is the same situation with the virtual servers as well. Okay. So what are the situations? What are the disadvantages at that time? Increasing load. Increased load, high CPU, high memory. So system hung and it's kind of an issues which is happening, right? So reboots. Even there are issues with system gets reboots as well, because once that your hard disk, the computer, if it is reaching into the high level utilizations, what happens? The system gets rebooted, it will be shut down. So what happens due to that issues? The customers will face issues. So if the server is getting hung, what happens? Usually you might have an observer, right? In earlier days, maybe back in 4 years back before the cloud, maybe there are less number of servers which has been given for some particular website like a Flipkart. When you are trying to hit the Flipkart website during high level sales, it is trying to throw you some kind of a connection error, site can't reachable error, and the 404, 502 errors, right? So those situations are because the usage and the load of that particular website has been hitting the servers, okay, and which has been configured with a less number of utilization. So that is the problem. So nowadays it's been easy because due to most of the automation techniques and these kind of auto scaling concept, what happens? This cloud can actually gauge the performance, where we are trying to come up with a concept like auto scaling and load balancer. What happens? We are trying to include all the servers. Okay, we are trying to include all the server details in the auto scaling concept, and then load balancer. What happens if you try to mention that under the load balancer? So I'm trying to configure this particular server's information under the load balancer concept. What happens here? Every server actually trying to have a monitored under the load balancer. So what happens? And then I'm trying to include under the auto scaling concept as well. So any requests which are coming to these servers, that will be monitored by auto scaling. What happens? Auto scaling, we are trying to define rules in such a way, if this particular app server 1 or web server 1 or web server 2, which is trying to reach 70% or 80% of CPU, it will try to have a get notification on the auto scaling. So what auto scaling concept will do? It will trying to see if this particular server is getting high utilizations, then it is trying to launch the new server. Okay. So same exact replica of this server will be launched. So you'll have a new server deployed over there. How it is trying to know? Because we are trying to configure beforehand. I'm trying to tell that as if there is an issue with the high CPU, high memory, then auto scaling will get to know that there is an issue with the high utilizations because more number of customers are using. So if people are trying to go with the cloud technology, so AWS is trying to provide these kind of an options where it can automatically trying to gauge the capacity and increase the capacity. So I'm trying to have more number of servers than here, correct? It will be automatically increased. So you doesn't require to go to the console and you doesn't need to tell the AWS team saying that I need these many servers again. So we shouldn't be worried about that. Once you try to opt for this kind of a service, it will auto launch all the infrastructure in the backend without any involvement. So it doesn't require to configure application. So it doesn't require to configure software. It doesn't require to configure any kind of a settings and OS. So exact replica of these servers will be automatically launched so that the users won't get affected. Okay. So even if there is actually 100 servers, right? If these are minimum servers. So I'm trying to tell these are the maximum servers, 1500. So if it is trying to go beyond, actually, if there is a less usage of traffic, then the auto scaling also try to low down the capacity. like a descaling the capacity as well. So there is no need of paying servers which are empty, right? So it will automatically try to monitor the performance of these empty servers. If there is no CPU utilizations and the servers are not used, it will try to terminate this. If there is a high usage and if the people are trying to hit, then the servers will be there, right? It will be automatically launched. So that's kind of a advantage and reliable services that has been provided with the auto scaling and load balancer. So auto scaling is trying to guess the capacity based on the high CPU, high memory. So what load balancer is doing? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 servers, right? Load balancer, what it is trying to? It is trying to distribute the traffic between all the servers evenly. Okay. So if any request is coming in, so it randomly distributes the traffic. If, for example, if app server 1, it has a high traffic, then it will try to distribute the traffic to app server 2. Then in the same way to web server 2 and everything. So this kind of a distribution will be happening with the help of a load balancer. So the combination of these two topics, kind of a services, it helps us to ensure that we have correct number of Amazon EC2 servers available to handle the load of our application. Okay. So that's how it is going to be benefit. And what load balancer is trying to do? Load balancer is trying to do distributions of workloads across multiple computer resources, such as virtual servers. So with a load balancer, we can increase the availability and fault tolerance of the applications. Okay. This is how it is going to be a good benefit, and it helps us to have a minimum, less down the issues with the real-time customer applications. Right. So this is way it is how it is going to helpful in the real-time environment. We might doesn't know like how quickly we are trying to access these websites, but the backend technology configured by all the cloud vendors actually been followed by here, so that the customers won't be get affected. Right. So that is how it's going to be affected. Configured within the cloud environment. Right. Any doubts of understanding? So that we'll try to do a sample lab and we'll try to see how the distribution and load will be divided into between them. We'll try to have that and see that in the console level as well. Are you able to understand, everyone? The concept of load balancer and auto scaling? Yes, it's kind of an addition of the server, complementary servers, which has been added on top of the existing servers. Servers will be launched based on the utilization from the existing servers. If the existing servers utilization is more than high, if 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people are trying to hit these servers, it might get high load. So this high load will be monitored by the load balancer and auto scaling, and it will be trying to distribute the load. Okay. So this is kind of a generic overview how you're trying to see the picture here, but actually it does have many configuration settings, and that it involves with some kind of a network aspects and the configurations and everything that will be needed, which has to be to implement this kind of an architecture. Just to make you understand, I just want to show you in this one. Any doubts on this? Understanding the theoretical concept? We'll just try to see how these options are actually available. Okay, so let's see how it is going to be actually be helpful and how it can be configured. Okay. Let me try to launch like around it. These had 4 servers, right? Let me try to launch 4 web servers here. Let's try to see how this can be automatically launched further. Okay. It's for an understanding purpose. So I'll try to launch servers with an Apache installation maybe. Maybe you can see, rather than launching every time, I'm trying to launch 4 servers at a time. You can see the number of instances equal to 4, for example. Okay. And it is trying to tell when launching more than 1 instance, consider EC2 auto scaling. Then I'm trying to launch that. I'll try to go with a free tier account with a free tier Linux image. And I selected T2.micro, 1 core CPU, 1 GB RAM as a part of retire. Here, as I told you, it has to be launched under the network, right? So I'm trying to select the network which has been already configured by me before. I need a public access, so I'm trying to assign the public access enable. And what else? Should be fine. So 8 GB of default storage. I'm trying to click on launch instance. Let's see. So the purpose of having these servers installed is just to make sure the websites which are actually installed in this server, so the load has to be equally distributed between these 4 servers. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to show you illustration how it is going to help. I think all are running mode. So everything it got private IP address and the public IP address. So if I try to open this particular public DNS in the website, let's see if it is what response it is giving. Will it give us a response over the public internet? Yes or no? Anyone? Anyone can confirm if I'm trying to load the public DNS of this particular server, do I get a response here? Yes or no? Because I've given the public IP address as well. I think I've covered the day before yesterday and what actually needed for this to cover. So what actually needed for response to be generated here? Any idea? I'm trying to load a website for this server. Any idea? Like what is needed for this particular server response to be loaded? So HTTP and HTTPS protocol should be enabled, right? Because to have this particular DNS loaded over the internet, then what is needed? Any website you load, it has to go with the HTTP or HTTPS protocols, correct? So that has to be enabled, right? So let us try to do that. So I'm trying to select this. Where I can try to do that. Security groups is the concept where I can try to enable the port. You can see by default, the Linux ports are enabled with the port number 22. So, for a Windows server, port number 3389, correct? So I'll try to edit this. Edit inbound rules, add rule. I can add HTTP and HTTPS both, or else if you try to add all traffic, it will try to give everything, all the ports will be enabled. So that is kind of a security concern. We shouldn't do that. Okay. Either I can try to enable with a 0.0 and I can try to enable with HTTPS 0.0. I'm clicking on save. Okay. This has been enabled. Even for other servers, the ports actually, okay. All other servers are also using the same security group. So once I try to add this, everything will be launched under the same security group. Okay, good. Now, so will it come still when I'm trying to load? So maybe if I try to remove security layer because it has been not configured with a certificate. So I'm trying to load with HTTP. It is still not coming. So a web page to display it for an application which is installed in the server, what is actually required? It is still not actually coming up. It is saying that site cannot be reached. So to have a site, what actually is needed? Even we have discussed in first class. What is needed to have this web page loaded? I enable the HTTP HTTPS port, but still it is saying this cannot be reached. Why? Any idea? Anyone, any idea? What is needed for a website to load? What is needed for a website to be displayed? I've enabled the ports, I launched the server, I defined this instance types and everything has been done. It is a running state. What actually is needed to a website to be displayed? I think I've already showed you on the first class, right? Some website actually has been displayed. What I did on that day? Internet is enabled because you can see there is an internet already actually configured here with the network. So that is already there. What else additional step is needed? To have any without any application, it doesn't show up anything, right? So website is needed. So to install the website, what is actually needed? I need to actually deploy that website in this particular server. If it is a Windows server, I need to install the. Am I audible, guys? I think just I quickly just lost the power. Okay. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Just okay. Let me share the screen. Okay. So you can see my screen. So to have an application installed, what actually is needed? I need to install some software or application into these servers. So what I'll try to do, I'll first go to and connect to the server. See to connect. Let's connect this. So as I told you, if you have a knowledge on Linux commands, you'll be able to understand. So during classes, you'll be taught with a 4 to 5 days of understanding and learning of Linux class as well within this AWS course. Okay. So I'm trying to execute some commands to install that applications. So I'm trying to install HTTP application. I'm editing the HTML file so that I can try to deploy a website. I can try to write what kind of information I need to have a display where I'm trying to load the website. Okay. So I've saved this. Let's see if it is trying to give us a website info now. Now you can see, I can see the website deployment with a welcome to ExcelR. In the same way, I'll try to do for one more server as well. Connect. I'm trying to install an applications with Linux command inside the Linux server. Okay. So the other one was welcome to ExcelR. Now I'm trying to put as welcome to ExcelR website too. This is also done. Let me try to check if that is giving a response. So to have the testing, I need to open this address in the internet. Public DNS. There is no certificate installed, so it will be loaded with the HTTP protocol. Welcome to ExcelR website. Okay. So for this below 3 servers, I'll doesn't install that just to know the difference between the load. So I'm trying to install a manual Apache, not with any editing of any text. Okay. Let's see what is the response it has to give now. It should give something like test to Apache web page. Okay, this is also working. So all 3 servers is deployed. Last server. Even this has been deployed. So even it has been generated test Apache web page. So there are 4 active servers as per the lab we are trying to do understand, right? It has been launched now. Share my screen. Okay. So you are able to see my console screen, right? Is my console screen visible? Okay. So now here you can see I'm going to add these servers under the load balancer. Okay. Let me try to see if I can create one. So there are different types of a load balancer, kind of an application load balancer, network load, gateway load. So this application load balancer is mostly useful for handling HTTPS traffic like the one we are doing. Network load balancer is mostly useful for the high level network protocols monitoring, kind of a UDP protocol and IP address level, network level. Gateway load balancer is something which will be able to utilize in a third-party applications. Okay. For now, the servers which have been launched under HTTP and web deployment, so application load balancer should be a better to use. Okay. So I'm trying to give it a name. ExcelR load balancer, and it has to be communicated over the internet. So I'm telling internet facing or internal. I'm giving internal facing IPv4, and I need to provide the network details where the servers has been launched. I'm giving that VPC, and I'm giving that where it has to load. The load balancer should work on at least minimum 2 available data zone. Availability zones. So I'm trying to give is that 2 availability zones here. Okay. Here you can see. Okay. So there are 2 availability zones. So I'm trying to define US West 2 and US West 2B. Okay. So what it is telling, select at least 2 availability zones and 1 subnet per zone. The load balancer routes traffic to the targets in these availability zones only. Availability zones are not separated by the load balancer of the VPC, are not available for selection. Okay, I've selected anything. And by default, the security group has been assigned here. So I'm trying to default that. It is trying to monitor the HTTP port 80. Okay. And everything will be default. I'm going to default settings. Let me try to launch. Okay. So I need to first create target group as well. Let me see if I can create target group. So load balancer is something, the configuration, we are trying to add these servers to the load balancer, right? The web servers which we have created. Target group is nothing but, defining of the instances into this load balancer. Okay. Target groups are nothing but instance definition. Like we are trying to define, these are the instances where it has to be added to the load balancer. That is where we need to define the target groups. So what you have to define instances. Okay. It supports load balance to instance with a specific VPC. So I'm trying to use instances as a target groups. So I'll try to go with the default settings, everything, click on next. Target group name, ExcelR target group. So this has been done. You can see it is asking which targets has to be added to the load balancer. Okay. So I'm trying to tell monitor these 4 servers under the load balancer so that the traffic load will be equally divided. Okay. I'm trying to add this. This has been added here. Create target group. You can see the targets have been used. Actually, it's been started and it will be monitored with the HTTP and HTTPS port. Let's see if it is how it is going. Has been added. Okay. So now I have created the target group, right? If I go back, what is the name of the target group which I given? ExcelR target group. So now this target group has to be defined here in the load balancer setting. So you can see it is appearing here. I've selected ExcelR target group under the load balancer settings. So I'm good to go now. I create load balancer. So I'm trying to attach the application load balancer to these target groups. Okay. Now I've tried to configure the lab session in such a way that these 4 servers should be automatically added to the load balancer. I did not configure the auto scaling still, but it has been added to that load balancer so that the traffic load will be equally distributed. Okay, these 4 servers. That's what I'm trying to do here. This has been done. It is actually in the progress. Target registration is in progress. Okay. It is going in installation mode. doing healthy and unhealthy. It just happens. Okay, so I think it's went on. Now this is a load balancer which has been created now. I'll copy this DNS ID. So this is the website which has been commonly created for all these 4 servers. Let's see how it is coming up. I'm trying to hit this website. It should actually load the URL of the Apache website we have deployed, correct? You see this welcome to ExcelR. It is coming in. You can see, if you quickly see, earlier I deployed welcome to ExcelR. Now it has been quickly coming to website 2. So if I am the user, I'm trying to hit this website. So it is trying to go to the different server. We doesn't know which server it is, but it is trying to share the load. If I try to refresh, you can see this, it has been changed. So when I'm trying to hit this particular URL, what happens? The load is equally sharing to Linux server 1, and next time the load is sharing to randomly to the Linux server 2. So the user who is trying to do, who doesn't know. Okay. But the backend technology, what happens when I'm trying to hit the same URL again, it is going to the different server. You see, website 2. The first time where it is trying to navigate, it is trying to navigate to the website 1. You see, so the load is actually equally divided. The reason I try to give a different description here, just to make us understanding as part of the lab purpose. Okay, so the same URL, if you try to hit, it should give you a different, it needs to go to a different server so that you will be able to understand, right? That's why I'm giving a different server name. You can see website 1 and website 2. In this way, the website's actually configured backend and kind of a flipkart.com, amazon.com or eBay. And these URLs like amazon.com, flipkart.com, this is a common URL provided to the user, so that every time the user doesn't require to go only to the Linux server 1 only, because that might increase the load. So that's why we have come up with the concept of load balancing. So the next time also when they are trying to hit, it might go to random to any of these servers. So that's what it is trying to tell. You can see, welcome to ExcelR, ExcelR2. So it is trying to randomly going to that particular server. So for understanding of that particular server which is going, I'm trying to put website 1 and website 2. But in general, this will be same content in the front end, but the back end, this will be a different, correct? It has been configured with a different URLs. You people can also try to have this load. It should be coming in with a, you can try to hit that server. So in the Zoom currently we have 500 member users, right? So if you people 500 members are trying to hit this particular URL, it is randomly trying to go any of these 4 servers. Okay. So in that way, the load is differently sharing. Okay. The load is actually equally sharing to 4 of these servers because of the concept of load balancer here. Are you seeing the response? Anyone try to test this website? Anyone? So you can see if you try to refresh this reload, you can initially see it will take time, but you see, it will try to share the load to a different server because users who are trying to use, they doesn't know like which server it is trying to use, right? The customers actually need the website to be working. That's it. They doesn't want issues with the site not reachable, connection issues and everything. So this is how. So the first request I'm trying is going to the web server 1 and the second server request is going to web server 2. Okay. So you are able to understand, right, what we are trying to achieve in terms of understanding the concept, how this traffic will be shared and the backend traffic, internet traffic will be shared across different servers in the backend. We have tried to have a demo for only 4 servers. There might be hundreds of servers, more than hundreds of servers with the high level specifications, so that the websites who are trying to deploy, like they doesn't want to have any issues while trying to load the websites in the public internet, correct? So that customers won't complain and they won't feel disappointed. So to have a reliable service, the company is trying to opt for the infrastructure setup in these cloud vendors. Okay. Any doubt? So hope everyone are trying, right? I can see few responses as well. It is changing for you people as well, right? All right. So we have tried to configure the load balancer configuration over here, right? Now these 4 servers are mounted under load balancer. Now what happens? Out of these 4 servers, at some point, I've just configured to have the servers configured for only how many servers? 100 servers who can handle the capacity of 1000 users, right? Currently, you people are in the Zoom are like 526 members, and now it is easy to load. Now, if it is actually crossing more than 1000, like if it is reaching beyond 1000 servers, like 1100 users are trying to hit these same 4 servers, what happens actually? So it is trying to break the connection. So it will try to give an error because the load will be more on these servers, even if the load balancer actually trying to divide the traffic, but this servers had a capacity to handle only 1000 users. But if it is beyond increasing from 100 to 200, what happens? The server get crashed and it gets hanged, correct? So at that time, what actually we are trying to do, we are making sure it is monitored under the auto scaling, correct? Let us try to do an auto scaling now. I'm going to auto scaling here. There is a concept, you see, the one we try to discuss in the back end. This is the auto scaling we are trying to work now. So let me see this. So all these configuration details and in details of understanding of each type, you'll be able to understand once you're completely going through code structure, okay? ExcelR AS. Now I need to define if there are any issues with these servers, it has to launch new servers, right? I need to submit what kind of a server it has to launch. So for that, I need to provide the AMI details under the auto scaling. I'm trying to do that. So what AMI it has been chosen here, it should be this one, right? I'm copying this AMI ID. Let's see if that I can try to put there. You see this? I'm selecting the Linux. I want to choose that. What type of server you want to choose? I want to go with the T2.micro. If any additional servers has to be launched, like this, like extra additional things, I need to define right? So I'm going with a T2.micro, like a free tier one. And I'm just going with the default details, the root volumes, that's it. This should be default security group, I believe. Create launch configuration. Okay, it is done. Now I need to define the configuration settings in the auto scaling group. Let's see. So what is the purpose of auto scaling? Without my manual intervention and without my involvement of creating new servers manually. Earlier, I've tried to create these servers manually, right? By giving all the details and installing Apache, correct? So now without the involvement from my end, it should deploy same replica of these servers automatically, which has been configured under the auto scaling. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to do it. Scaling group. Next, VPC should be the same network which I've tried to launch during instances, and public subnet one. Click on next. Now you can see this auto scaling has to be linked with load balancer. So whatever the servers under these 4 auto scaling, load balancer, these has to be monitored under the auto scaling, correct? I need to define that load balancer here as well. Attach an existing load balancer. I've already created load balancer, right? So you can see it is coming up ExcelR target groups and load balancer here. Then I'm going to this thing, click on next. Okay. So it is trying to tell Specify the size of auto-scaling group by changing the desired capacity. You can specify minimum and maximum capacity limits. Your desired capacity must be within the limit range. So what actually it is trying to tell? If there is an issue with the utilization out of these 4 servers, what are the desired capacity, like which you want to launch servers, like minimum servers, how many you want to launch? It is trying to tell us. So I'm trying to tell minimum servers I need is 3 servers. Okay. And desired capacity, by default, it has to launch 3 servers and minimum capacity. So what are the minimum servers you need to launch? So minimum, it should also be 3, and maximum, how many servers you want to launch at end. So it doesn't go beyond, even if it is reaching 100%, to avoid the charges, you had a calculation, right? So I'm okay to increase the maximum capacity of servers is 4. So automatically these servers should be launched. I'm trying to define these settings here. So under what basis these servers will be launched, I need to define here again. Okay. So how do you want to track the performance here? I told you, right? Increasing load, high CPU, high memory, and system and network based things. So based on these settings, this has to launch new servers when there is an issue. Now, as I told you, every computer had some specifications resource that is running under CPU and memory. So I'm trying to use average CPU utilizations. Okay. So what should be the target value? You can try to define. For example, if the CPU is crossing 80%, you need to launch, it need to launch maximum of 3 servers and the minimum of 3 servers, and maximum high level servers, it is stopped beyond is 4 servers. So this is kind of a maximum limit. So we doesn't have a traffic currently. So let me try to put a initial as kind of a target value as a 1, like 1% CPU. If it is increased, it has to launch 3 servers minimum. Okay. And the maximum should be 4 based on the requirement. And it needs 300 seconds to warm up before including the metric. So it takes 300 seconds to monitor the performance, launch the servers. Okay. I'm trying to track the performance when it is trying to reach highest CPU utilizations. Then from this load balancer, it is trying to monitor the performance from auto scaling. Auto scaling will automatically launch these 3 servers automatically. Okay. Let us try to see that. Click on next. If you want to have this notification, for example, if there is an issue with the high utilizations, you can try to set up an email notification to your email address, so that whenever you see that email address, you'll get to know, okay, my servers are getting high level state. Even you can try to add that notification with the help of a simple notification service. You can have that email service, which we can try to cover during course structure. Okay. Click on next. Next. I think we should be good. I'm clicking on create auto scaling group. Okay. So it has been done. So it is trying to go with the auto scaling configuration as well successfully. It is still in creation, updating capacity. Let's see. So I've given 1% of a highest CPU utilizations. You can see this when I'm going to my personal laptop. I have a different applications installed, right? I have a different applications installed where I'm trying to do a practice. So my performance is going, it is trying to go 70%, 80%, everything, because the background process, it has so many applications which are running through in the background. But the Linux servers which I deployed, it doesn't have a process. So that's why I'm giving minimum value as a 1%, okay, for our understanding purpose. So let's see what it actually is giving. So the new servers are going to be launched in US West 2 and US West 2B. So these are availability zones. Let's give it some time. Okay, I think it is going there. Now, my auto scaling has been configured. What is the capacity which I've actually defined? Minimum 3 servers are actually required if it is reaching 1% of CPU. You can see these 3 servers are automatically launched here. If everyone are actually observing clearly, this has been not created by me. This has been additionally created by auto scaling group. You can see these are running. Are you able to see everyone understanding the concept as per the thing which I have described here? Without my involvement, based on the settings configuration auto scaling, with the load balancer, it is trying to automatically launch these 3 servers so that users who are trying to this website, they are trying to reach these servers again, rather than completely loading the distribution load. So the load will be distributed across all these 7 servers. You're able to understand? See, for example, if so, first of all, if a website user who is trying to hit the web server 1, if it is reaching around 8%, 80%, then what happened? It will, the auto scaling will try to see that, and it will automatically launch a new server, and the request load traffic will be shared to the 5th server, and the same way to the 6th server. So the traffic will be equally divided under the load balancer. Clear? If I try to delete this, I'm trying to shut down the newly created servers. Let's see if that creates again. It takes 300 seconds to monitor the performance again. So I've given an options to create for a minimum of 3 server and maximum of 4 servers, right? See that activity has been monitored here. It has been successfully launched, the instances. And with all the dates and everything, what it is trying to tell, at 2023 316, the auto scaling group changed the desired capacity from 0 to 3. An instance was started in response to a difference between desired and actual capacity, increasing the capacity from 0 to 3. Okay. So this is how the backend automation, the servers are automatically launched in the backend. Now, as I try to delete the server, okay, now I need to see if new servers are running again. You can see again, new server is getting launched because the old servers actually terminated, right? Again, that auto scaling is trying to gauge the performance out of this 4, and it is newly servers are launching. You see, this is a new server again. It should launch 2 more. This is coming in. And again, slowly after every 300 seconds, this is trying to launch more 3 servers as per the required lab session we have tried to understand in the form of network diagram. Okay. So until you try to stop the auto scaling, these servers will be keep launched like with a maximum capacity of 4, and the traffic of the share will be equally divided between them. Yes, when we try to configure the same settings, if there is no traffic, you can try to descale the capacity. Even auto scaling had a concept to descale, like the servers will be automatically terminated when there is no traffic into these servers. Okay, we have options to select that. You see, again, the new server is launching here. Pending status, one is running, one is pending. So the traffic will be divided to these servers as well. It is going successfully. So this is how the auto scaling concept will go on. So once I'm done with work, so I just need to have with the cleanup efforts on deleting the settings currently. So we just need to make sure, because even if you try to practice as part of your project or the lab session, if you try to forget this, the servers will be having keep on running status and will launch automatically. It will be chargeable, right? So that's why we're just trying to make sure if that can be deleted once we are done with lab session. Got it? So I'll go back. Before I delete that settings, everyone are clear with the concept? You people are able to understand how in real time the load balancer and the web deployment package, it works? Any doubts? Any doubts? Are you able to understand the automation, like how the background in real-time environment, how it works? You are able to understand? Yes or no? I'm deleting these settings now. I can see responses from few people. So I've deleted. So now this instances won't be launched soon. So let me try to delete the load balancer as well here. It will give an error for target group. So I've deleted these as well. So balance is done. Target group deletion has been done. Launch configuration. Auto scaling groups. It is slowly deleting. We just need to make sure if this cleanup efforts has to be done while we are in learning stage. And people who doesn't got experience, if they try to create and just left it, it will be a kind of a chargeable service you need to pay out. Any doubts in the meanwhile? Understanding the concept of compute services, how it works? Okay, this has been deleted. Let me delete these servers as well because these are in running state, which I shouldn't make that. I'll delete these as well because it launched almost 12 servers. Okay. Let me try to terminate all of them at once. Let's see. Yes, I'm deleting the server. Someone had a question. It will be no more. Of course, if I try to delete the server, it won't be there. I'm trying to terminate, right? If I try to stop the server, it will be there. The data will be in place. If I click on terminate, it is same like I'm trying to completely delete the server. Stop is nothing but I'm just trying to shut down the computer. Okay. If I terminate means entire data will be deleted. It won't be available now. Let it be deleted, everything, shut down as well. All right, my cleanup effort has been completed for this specific lab thing. It should be done. And there is a concept again within that. Actually, it is nothing but a CloudWatch. Okay, the CloudWatch is nothing but where whatever the servers we are trying to monitor right here, that will try to have all the events. So the logs, events, and the CPU utilization, the status checks, and the network aspects, and everything will be monitored under the CloudWatch logs. So CloudWatch is a concept where it will try to see the responses, like what actually, how much response in time it is taking to load, and the events and who logged into that servers, and everything will load over here. And we can try to configure the alarms as well, so that if particular server actually reaching to the highest threshold value, so it is trying to send a notification to your email address if you try to configure an alarm as well. Okay, so that there's an option over here. If I try to CloudWatch in the search, you can see that. You can see this is a console for the CloudWatch. What actually is a CloudWatch? The Amazon CloudWatch monitors your Amazon Web Services resources and the applications you run on the AWS in real-time environment. So we can use CloudWatch to collect and track metrics, which are variables you can measure for your resource and applications. Okay. And so what happens? We can try to create a dashboards to display the metrics like CPU, network, and memory utilizations and everything for your custom applications, and display those applications in form of a metrics that we choose. We can try to create the graphs. So how this is going to be helpful in real-time environment? So it is be helpful to monitor the performance of the instances which are running. So we doesn't know how these instances are actually having a highest load, right? So which server is trying to take a load, which server is having highest memory. So what happens? We simply try to configure under this CloudWatch. So what actually CloudWatch will try to do, it will try to provide you the display about automated display metrics about every AWS service we'll try to use. Okay. And then in the same thing, you are trying to send in and configure an alarm. So what actually alarm? The alarm is trying to monitor the performance of that utilization to have that metrics and send notification to your email address. Or we can try to configure that to make automatic changes to the resources we are monitoring when a threshold is breached. Now we can try to observe, right? If CPU threshold is breached more than 80%, we are trying to launch new server. In the same way, this CloudWatch monitor logs will help us to configure this high-level dashboards, right? So we can try to monitor the CPU usage and the disk reads and the writes of Amazon EC2 instances, and then use that data to determine whether we should launch additional servers to handle the load, correct? So these logs will helpful to configure any steps, kind of auto scaling load balancer, we can try to take a decision by based on watching these logs. Okay. So we can also use this to stop under used instances to save money as well. So it doesn't know if the instance are trying to use highest utilizations or lowest resources, correct? So that utilization can be monitored by the CloudWatch. That indirectly it will be trying to save money rather than spending more money on servers deployment. Okay. So that is all about the CloudWatch as well. This one kind of a service included in the compute services. So I'll try to delete this. Any further doubts on these topics, guys? So we'll be going with the next service with an introduction for today, and tomorrow we'll try to see the different options over there. Okay. So we are done with the compute services for today. So the next topic with the module 3 is storage service. We have completed with the introductions of understanding of various options within that. AWS, like it's a compute services. Now it is a storage service. Okay. So what is S3? It is nothing but a simple storage service. How it works usually. So that we need to understand and how the storage helps in real-time environment. Okay. So it's a simple architecture, and using Amazon S3, how we can try to store the data in Amazon S3, and we can try to see how the data can be moved in and from Amazon S3. Okay. And when you are trying to move the data to this particular storage, so what kind of a different permissions and policies which are available within the storage service, we can try to see in this overview in the lab sessions as well. Okay. And we can try to choose regions and trying to deploy our storage data over there. Okay. So what actually, how it is going to be helpful, we'll try to understand in theoretical currently. So what is an Amazon S3? An object storage service. It stores massive amounts of unstructured data. Okay. So whatever the data which has been loaded in terms of web applications, like users are trying to load their data into that applications, or you want to have a manual data applied, it's kind of a structured data or an unstructured data, and everything will be loaded. It's kind of a massive data. The data can be anything. Okay, the documentation data, the user data, and everything. The data actually is the primary concerns, where in the current scenarios, it has to be primary concern, which shouldn't be hacked or attacked with the cyber threats, right? So the data has to be securely stored. So Amazon is coming with this kind of a services, which will helpful to reduce that security threats, and that can be stored in this kind of a storage services. So data files are stored as an objects in a bucket that you define. So inside this S3, the data we are trying to call that as an objects. Okay. And the folders inside that particular storage service is nothing but a buckets. Okay. Bucket is nothing but a folder, and objects is nothing but a data. And how it is going to be helpful? It is kind of that's why we are trying to call this as an object-based storage service, offering high-level scalability and data availability, security, and performance. Okay. So customers of all sizes and industries, like a startup companies and high-level companies, can store and protect any amount of data for virtually any use case, such as data leaks, cloud native applications, and mobile applications. Okay. So AWS is trying to provide cost-effective storage classes and easy to manage features so that you can optimize cost and organize data and configure access controls to meet the specific business needs and organizational compliance needs. Okay. In terms of secure environment. So 5 TB is the maximum file size of a single object. So each data size, like, every time when you try to upload a data, that should be a maximum limit of 5 TB. At a time, you can try to upload 5 TB of data at once. Kind of it will be considered as a single object. And all objects have a REST accessible globally unique URL, universal space. So whatever the data you're applying, that data have a unique URL. That is nothing but a universal namespace. So that data can be visible over the internet if you would like to give permissions over the internet. Okay. So how that data can be monitored? it should have a unique ID, right? So all objects has a key, version ID, values, and the metadata and the sub resources. So each object will have a unique IDs, the keys, values, and metadata, which you can try to see manually when you're trying to do a lab session tomorrow. You'll be able to understand clearly. So each data had a specific values. That's what it is trying to tell. So Amazon S3 is a pioneer in the cloud storage. It's being most popular in the current market in the cloud data storage and has uncountable benefits. Let's have a look at the 5 most prominent ones. So how it is going to be advantageous. Okay, it has a reliable security because the data which you're trying to upload to the cloud, so that will be having a reliable security in terms of the policies and the permissions which AWS is trying to take care of. Okay, and all-time availability. So people who are trying to upload the data inside this particular AWS cloud storage, it will be available at any time. You can try to view the data whenever it is needed. And it is trying to provide various options under the pricing, that is which is considered with a very low cost option. Ease of migrations. You can try to migrate the data from cloud storage, your on-premise environment as well, and from your on-premise environment to cloud as well. That's how it is going to helpful. The simplicity of management. You can simply try to view all the data inside the console level, which will be giving a clear vision of when this data can be uploaded and what time the data is in place. So securing Amazon S3 buckets and objects. So newly created S3 buckets and objects are private and protected by default. So whatever the data you upload to the storage here in the S3, that will be completely private and protected. By default, it won't be shared to anyone and it doesn't have any access to anyone, right? Until the owner specify that. So you being an administrator, what you can do when use cases must share Amazon S3 data, you can try to manage and control the data access. So you can try to control the access, try to give the access to anyone who can try to access your data, like the objects. So it is always recommendable to follow the principle of least privileges. So least privileges means we should always give, due to the security concerns, we should always give less privileges, like less access, so that it shouldn't be accessible over the public internet, right? It will be threatened. So that is, it's a risky one. So that's why it is suggestible to follow the principle of least privilege. So what are the different tools which are available in S3? Tools and options for controlling access to Amazon S3 data. So you can try to block the public access. You can configure IAM policies, and you can have an access control list. So this is one kind of a permission. Pre-signed URLs. You can grant limited time access to others with temporary URLs. And AWS Trust Advisor, bucket permissions. You can try to give permissions for the folders and the objects as well. Okay. So these are the different options and features which are available. And 3 general approaches to configure access. So how this access to this data has been configured within the AWS, that we'll try to see with this snippet. Configure the appropriate security settings for your use case on the buckets and objects. So 3 general approaches to configure access. Configure the appropriate security settings for use case on the buckets and objects. What are the different options? By default, Amazon S3 security settings will be updated to the private. That means the settings won't be visible to anyone. Like it cannot be shared, right? The data you upload, it will be by default secured. So that's why it is trying to have, no one will have an access until only for the owner. And when you try to enable the public access from the settings, you can see this has been granted access to the public. So anyone can try to access this data with a URL details provided by us. So you can try to ping the URL to someone and this will be loaded over the internet. So that will try to see the session in tomorrow as well. And access policy applied to the Amazon security settings. So you can try to configure access policy for user A, user B, user C. Like you can try to define the controls. This particular user can access, this particular user can be restricted. In that way, the control settings can be configured inside the S3. Okay. So we have a different types of encryptions options within the S3. That is nothing but encryption encodes data with a secret key, which makes it unreadable. So the data which has been loaded, we can try to set up the encryption with a secret key is defined. So without the secret key, you cannot access the data. So this kind of encryption can be set. Only users have the secret key can decode the data, right? And optionally use AWS key management service to manage the secret keys. So keys can be configured in AWS key management service. So without the secret key, it cannot be, the data cannot be accessed. Okay. Pre-signed URL means, for example, I upload one object like, 2 GB of PDF documents inside the S3 bucket. So to have given access to that data, I need to provide to someone, user A. So I'll try to provide the URL of that particular data 2 GB. So that URL can be, that will be called as a pre-signed URL. So that URL will be given to user A so that he can access that data and try to access the documents. It is not a password. It is kind of a access to data. It is kind of a URL format. So what are the different types of encryptions? Server-side encryption and the client-side encryption. In the server-side encryption on the bucket, enable this feature by selecting the default encryption option. Whenever you upload the data, you can try to click on server-side encryption. So what actually Amazon is trying to do, Amazon S3 encrypts objects before it's save the objects to the disk and decrypts the objects when you download them. Okay. So this will be done when without any upload of data to the server. Before only it will try to do the server-side encryption. So it will try to encrypt the data in server level. Okay. So client-side encryption. What is client-side encryption? Encrypt data on the client side and upload the encrypted data to the Amazon S3. So what is client side? So I am a user. I'm trying to upload the data to the server. So the data will be encrypted from my end, and then it will be trying to load in the server level. Okay. You can see upload the encrypted data to the Amazon S3. In this case, you manage the encryption process. So these are different types of encryption process which are available within the S3. So what are all the other options which is available over the S3? Hosting the websites. So we can try to see those options when we are trying to do this project lab session, okay, tomorrow. So till now, here we have completed till Amazon, right, S3. So if I try to go to this console here, the dashboard will be looking like in this fashion. Amazon S3. This is a scalable storage service. Trying to click here. This is the dashboard, how it looks like. Here it is kind of a information Amazon S3. These are the kind of folders. These folders in the terms of AWS, these are called as a buckets. Inside the bucket, we'll try to dump the data. Okay. The data will be stored in which form? Object. That's why we are calling this as object-based storage. So that is what we are trying to understand. The encryption and the access level and user control, everything will be configured here. For example, if I try to create a folder, like create a bucket, my bucket means so I can try to create in any region which is available. I'm trying to create Oregon as US West region, and I'm enabling the by default permissions. I'm clicking on create with the default settings. Okay. And remember, this bucket names are unique. So if anyone who is trying to use the same bucket name in any region, it won't be available. So someone is actually trying to use this bucket. So I'm trying to give it a different name, 1, 2, 3 maybe. You can see this bucket name contains the upper characters, right? Let me try to give it as ExcelR bucket. Let's see if it is available or not. It is not available. It is then. I'm acknowledging create bucket. So a folder has been created here. ExcelR bucket. Trying to find this. You can see I've created a folder which is called as a bucket, ExcelR bucket in the AWS region. And here I've tried to make sure the objects can be public so that anyone can access these objects. Initially, no one will be able to access the objects, right? I try to enable the permissions anyone can access because I try to enable the permissions here. So it has been created. So once I open this, if I want to upload the data from my local system, if I try to go there, you can see add files. For example, if I'm trying to upload this, trying to upload the data from my local system to be stored here. So what are these called? This data in this bucket is called as objects. That's why we are calling as object-based storage. Okay. I'm trying to click on upload. The data being uploaded to this S3 storage here. You can see it is slowly uploading. It has been succeeded. So in this bucket, I have this data has been uploaded. So if I want to access this data, I told you, right, pre-send URL. If I try to open this data, if I click on this, it will be generating an object URL. Okay, when I'm trying to open this URL over the internet, it should come in. So the access has been denied. When I'm trying to open this, click on open. You can see I'm trying to open this particular URL over data. So this is sending a pre-send URL. For each object, it is trying to generate a key UID and URL so that you can try to load the data over the internet. So we'll try to see more options with the coming sessions tomorrow as well. Okay. So this is how the bucket concept will work on here in the S3. Any doubts on understanding the theoretical understanding of S3 storage? You're done with session for today. Any doubts of understanding the theoretical aspect of S3 today? We'll try to practice, see various options in for tomorrow as well for S3. Any doubts? Yes, we can try to upload images, documents, videos, any kind of a data to the S3 storage. So you can see this Netflix is also using that Amazon as a service, right? Even they are trying to upload and trying to use this S3 as a storage service. That's been one of the customer as well. S3 cannot be used as a database. Database is something which has to be stored in form of tables and queries, right? S3 can be linked to the database. I hope you people understand the concept. Any doubts? Okay, good. And you hope these sessions are going well and it makes you interesting to understand the concept. So I'm just trying to go with a fundamental level. So indeed, there are many aspects that has to be looked into while trying to choose and trying to work on the projects. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? All right, then. I hope you people had a great day then. Thanks, everyone. Physical storage of a cloud is a data center. Somewhere the data center of this particular Amazon is located over different regions, like over the globe, right? So the data center has been deployed in somewhere in locations. So it is kind of a physical storage only. Even this Amazon has to opt for a space. They need to have a physical servers, big racks and everything we have discussed. They have to purchase acres of land. They need to deploy their infrastructure. They need to configure services. And from there, they are trying to provide virtual services over the internet to us. Okay. Any other doubts? All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll meet up tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tirunal, you can wind up.
Okay, ma'am.
Share attendance link once again and then wind up.
Okay, ma'am.